Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining. This is Brooke Williams, your event organizer, and we would like to welcome you to the Life After J.D. Edwards Alumni webcast. We're so glad you've logged on for this fun and informative discussion among former J.D. Edwards executives. Today we'll talk with the alumni panel and learn how they have found the right people and increased their opportunities to tell their story. At any time today, you may participate by sending your questions into the panel. Simply use the chat pane located on your GoToWebinar panel, and we will answer your questions during the Q&A discussion. Leading the conversation today is Mike Scher, CEO and Chief Demand Creation Architect at Frontline Selling. Mike is the heart and soul here at Frontline Selling, passionately driving sales and strategic growth. Mike spent 18 years in enterprise technology sales, half with J.D. Edwards, where he was a frequent President's Club winner, driving enterprise transactions. And in 2002, Mike and his business partner, Dan McCann, founded Frontline Selling, and their excellent growth and success continues today. Again, we're so glad you've joined the discussion. With that, I'll turn it over to Mike, and we can begin.
Thank you, Brooke, and welcome everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you very much for joining our webinar today. I actually had the idea for this a few months back because I've had the opportunity, as Brooke mentioned, I was at J.D. Edwards for 9 years, from 1990 to 1998. I can count on one hand the bad days I had at J.D. Edwards. It was just a great company to work for and great people to work with, and made some wonderful friendships and business relationships. And in 2002, when I started Frontline Selling, naturally I went back to my network, and still today I get an opportunity to talk to many former J.D. Edwards people who are just doing exceptionally well in the marketplace. So we're really happy and excited to introduce you to, or reintroduce you probably to three of these folks. These are our panelists for today. The folks I'd like to introduce you to, the first one is Andrew Raines. Andrew is the president at Rainmaker. Andrew, how you doing? You're here in Alpharetta, Georgia with me?
Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you today, Mike?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us. We're going to hear a lot more from Andrew and what he's doing, and a little bit about Rainmaker in just a few minutes. And then the next panelist joining us from Denver, Vice President of Sales at Four Winds Interactive, Randall Dick. Randall, are you there?
I am here.
Okay.
I trust you can hear me okay.
We can hear you fine. Thanks, Randall. And thanks for taking time out of your incredibly busy worldwide travel schedule. What did you say, about 150, 200,000 miles or something you've been putting on in the last year or so? So
about 200K a year.
Oh, wow. And that's just keeping you real busy and hopefully out of trouble. So, and Four Winds is doing some wonderful things, and that's an exciting story. All these are exciting stories. And then our third panel is Jay Irwin. Jay, are you there?
Yeah, hello, Mike.
How are you? Thanks for joining. Jay is the director of the University Mobility Innovation Center at SAP. It was interesting when I talked to Jay about joining this discussion. Obviously Jay has the more of the least traditional title of the panelists here, and he is. I just remember one of the wonderful things he said was, it's really good to be at a point in his life where he gets to choose what he wants to do versus being told what to do each and every day. And Jay's just doing some wonderful things, and I think you're going to be excited about hearing what some of the things he's doing. So Jay, welcome. Thanks for taking the time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. It's great to be here.
Great, thanks. Well, what we'd like to do, the way this is going to shake out today is wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction. One of the sort of the glue that kind of brings us all together, obviously, is all of our J.D. Edwards experiences. And some of us were here for a long time, some of us not so long. And there's just some wonderful stories that I've heard, and that's why I thought it'd be a good idea to share some of them. I first wanted to share with you a little bit about my story at J.D. Edwards and the story of Frontline Selling, and introduce you to who we are, what we do, and I even wanted to share with everybody a little bit about how we do what we do. We've done a number of different webinars here at Frontline over the past decade or so, and one of the things we always try to do is take some of the things that we've learned and share it with our audience, and just something that you might be able to to take back to your to your businesses and actually put in place each and every day. And hopefully you take a little tidbit back today. But when we talk about frontline selling and who we are and what we do, I mentioned I was at J.D. Edwards for for nearly 9 years. I had 18 years selling enterprise software, and back in 2002, I had always had this idea about, or always been pretty good at breaking into new accounts. So I left J.D. Edwards in '98, did a couple different startups, was which makes it a little bit more difficult to get into net new accounts. As I said, I was more successful than other people who were, I thought, much better and smarter salespeople than I was, and I couldn't understand why. And that really formed the basis of how how we started J.D. Edwards, and how we started Frontline Selling. And the whole premise behind Frontline Selling is that in any business-to-business sale, whether it's someone who's expressed an interest in you, like a website hit, white paper lead, download, or someone you've expressed an interest in selling to, like a targeted account, the game really begins with that first meaningful business conversation. And it might take you 10 or 12 conversations to sell a deal, but you can't do any of them until you do the first. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens prior to that first conversation: marketing automation, lead scoring, messaging, none of which we do, but they're all really, really important things. And then after that first conversation, in the ensuing 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years, quite frankly, that it might take for you to sell something, there's a whole bunch of steps that have to happen. As a matter of fact, Randall used to teach these when he was at J.D. Edwards. Solution selling, contract negotiation, presentation skills, etc. Okay, but none of the, but initiating that first conversation is key. It's the catalyst to all that follows. And simply stated, this is what we do at Frontline Selling: is we help our clients, we help their salespeople get more first appointments with people who are genuinely interested in talking to them, so they can have the opportunity to tell their story more often and sell more. And we believe that the secret in being able to sell more is having the opportunity to tell your story to the right person more often. So what happens is, a lot of people, try, whether you're starting, I know there's some folks on here who are starting new businesses or young businesses or startup companies. Some people have been, in business for a while. What we hear over and over again is that, the challenges I have when I'm trying to get in front of people is, there's a whole bunch of challenges. I can't get by the gatekeeper, right? That nobody's there to answer the phone. I can't, I leave lots of voicemails, but nobody calls me back. How can I find someone who's really interested? The list or the data I have in Salesforce.com or my database is really not that good. How do I get through all those problems, and how do I inspire these people to actually want to talk to me? Forget about just getting through, but how do I take it to the next level and inspire? Well, here's what we found here at Frontline Selling, is in helping our clients get more first conversations, we have figured out that there's actually nothing stopping any salespeople from getting greater outcomes and getting more first appointments than they are today. In fact, if you have a sales team, I can guarantee you, I may not have met them, but I can guarantee you they all have the desire, the intellect, and the talent to be successful. The only thing they lack, and it really is the only thing, is a simple, common sense approach that tells them on any given day who should they contact, how should they contact them, what should they say, should they call them, should they email them, what specifically, precisely should they say in those calls, those emails, those voicemails, etc. How often should they follow up? So we've actually studied this. We've had the opportunity since 2002. We've studied this at Frontline Selling and figured out what we believe are the right answers to all those questions. And we've actually shared those best practices with hundreds and hundreds of different companies, nearly 20,000 salespeople worldwide. We even have a team here in Alpharetta, Georgia, we have about 35 people who do this each and every day. And every single person who follows these steps, whether they're young or old, selling big ticket items or transactional systems, whether they're 25-year veterans or, quite frankly, newbies just out of college, and actually Andrew might even be able to share some of that with you, is that every single one who follows the steps gets way more first appointments with the right people, and for many, the experience has been a career game changer. So we're going to start sharing with you, what I, just from my experiences at J.D. Edwards. Like I said, I've had some, great relationships and great experiences with J.D. Edwards. I wanted to share a little bit and give back a little bit and say, here's some of the things that we have found that have worked. If you are trying to get more first sales appointments, if you have a sales team that can benefit from getting more first sales appointments, if you're in a deal and you want to get to the CFO at the end of a deal, there's a couple of things that you need to, if you just think a little differently, here are some thought processes and some techniques that might be able to help you, get to that, get to that C-level executive, or get to that CFO and get that deal closed. And if we can help you in any way, shape, or form today, that would be outstanding. But the first thing you need to do is you need to think differently when you're doing outreach or prospecting into an account, right? That includes thinking of this. Most people think this is a hunting activity and that we've got to get around the gatekeeper, and that they spend time writing this perfect letter, and prospecting is and selling are one and the same. What we have found is one of the big challenges to getting first appointments is how people think about what the obstacles are. So one of the things that we do ourselves, clients hire us to do for them, or hire us to come in and teach them how to do for themselves to get more appointments. The first thing we do is we change their mindset. We say, hey, this is much more of a farming approach versus a hunting activity. It's more about, the beauty of farming is farming happens while you're not doing it. Things grow, as long as you plant some seeds and you water them every couple of days, you can't stop tomatoes from growing. And we've taken very much a farming approach to a traditional hunting activity. We're going to actually share with you an example of how some of this would work. A lot of people think that, every time, what we call the school of hard knocks, every time you get a no, you're that much closer to a yes. That's really, that's really confusing activity with progress. It's not so much about how much activity you do, it's about how well you do each of those activities. So there's a right way to leave a voicemail and to send an email and to speak and have a conversation with an administrative assistant, for example, and there's every other way. And we're going to share a little bit about that. The other thing is that, these gatekeepers, so-called gatekeepers, they're really not the enemies. These are not people that are trying to keep us out. When you start thinking differently about this, and you're going to hear from Rainmaker, you're going to hear from Jay Irwin at SAP, you're going to hear from Randall at Forwin. All these firms bring solutions to the marketplace that people don't necessarily wake up in the morning saying, I need to buy one of these today. But they struggle with the business problems that each and every one of these clients, or each and every one of these solutions solves on a regular basis. So these key players are not trying to keep you out. In the case of Rainmaker, of course they want to increase their revenue. In the case of SAP, of course they want to get greater visibility into their financial performance. In the case of in case of Forwinds, of course they would want to have a better presentation of their brand, or help people navigate through their locations better, or do a whole host of things more effectively. The challenge is that it isn't they don't want to talk to you. The challenge is that they actually have an obligation to talk to people like you, because you have solutions to help them run their business better, faster, cheaper, more effectively. The challenge isn't how do I get past the gatekeeper. The challenge is that these key players, these executives, are busy. They only have time to talk to a couple of people in a meaningful way on a monthly basis. And what we've done is figured out how to leverage the gatekeeper as a tour guide to help them choose you as one of those 2 or 3 people they're going to talk to, versus the 200 or 300 other knuckleheads who are trying to talk to him or her. So it's really not so much about the perfect letter. The reason why people meet with you is, your letter's got to be good, your email's got to be good, it's got to be relevant to them. But we talk more about the perfect campaign. as much about the repetition of the request, the synchronized repetition of the request of why you want to meet with them for, has more so to do with the reason why they're going to meet with you versus the content of that request. And I know that sounds, sort of strange, but if you think about it, that's how business-to-consumer marketers work. The reason why you patronize brands like McDonald's and Nike is because they become more familiar to you than the other brands. And they become more familiar to you through a campaign by repeating their tagline, "I'm loving it, just do it," over and over and over again through multiple communication protocols. So when we're teaching people and doing this for folks, we're teaching them that prospecting and selling are separate activities. Prospecting is all about how do I find the right person who cares about this and how do I get their attention. Selling is what happens once we get there. And what we're here at Frontline is giving you an opportunity to prospect more effectively and get more of those quality interactions. So how would this work? And I'm going to give you an example, and then we're going to talk to some of the panelists and talk about some of their experiences. But if you sell in the business-to-business environment, you're selling into an organization, and you have, whether it's a lead you're following up with, or it's an account you want to penetrate. Every organization has, organizational chart. This is a mid-sized company. You might sell a bigger company, so they got bigger, more boxes. Smaller companies, they got fewer boxes, but the concepts we're going to talk about are the same. So what happens is most people, and I'm sure everybody agrees here, most people believe in a multi-touch point approach, and so do we. But the way most people would action a multi-touch point approach is typically looks like this, right? The first thing they do is they build or buy a stale list of contacts. And in my example here, we're targeting, let's say, the VP of sales, but the target could be whoever it is for you. But they build or they buy or they steal a list of contacts. And then they use their multi-touch point approach, right? They call them and they email them and they call them and they email them. And then occasionally that VP picks up the phone and they have this do or die death match. Well, we all know who usually wins that. And it's not the person on the, making the phone calls. It's the key player, okay? But, if you're really good, you win a couple more than the next guy, and, that's it. But that's a traditional multi-touch point approach, and there's a couple of fundamental problems with that approach, and I'm going to share them with you, right? Number one is that list that you either built, that you bought, that you stole from somewhere, it's never 100% accurate, right? At best, we hear anywhere from, 50% accurate to 80% accurate, whatever. Let's just say it's about 60 or 70% accurate. That means it's about 30% inaccurate, and 30% of your time is a total waste of time and effort. The second way is that you just can't make that VP pick up the phone any more than he or she is going to. And so by definition, you're going to have a finite number of do or die death matches. And you're not going to win them because you can't make them not be busy the instant before the phone rang. So what we have figured out here at Frontline, and what I wanted to share with you, is we don't have a better list. We don't have a better list of, whatever your target market is. If there was a better list, you would have found it already because you're good at what you do and you're focused on it, okay? And we can't make these people pick up the phone any more than they're going to, but we can help you get more first appointments. And here's an idea I want to share with you, right? So what we do ourselves with our 30-some-odd folks we have here in Alpharetta, Georgia, and what we've shared with nearly 20,000 salespeople across 4 continents is something that they inherently already know how to do, but we just give them a system and a process to go ahead and do it. And it's all based on the fact that we believe, too, in a multi-touch point approach, but what we have figured out, if you do things in a certain order and you do it in a certain way, you'll actually generate more touches more consistently versus the traditional approach, which is fewer touches haphazardly. And if we get more touches more consistently, we can get more of those first appointments. And one of the premise we have is that every organization that you would reach out to, whether they're bigger or smaller than what you see on the screen, they all have their own unique communication protocols. Just like when we were at J.D. Edwards had its own language. And then we left J.D. Edwards and we went to another company, and they had a whole different, set of 3-letter acronyms and, formal and informal communication protocols. We like to call that the social DNA of the organization. What we have figured out is how to leverage the social DNA of the organization to solve the two big problems we have in getting appointments, which is finding the right person who cares about what it is we're selling, and once we find them, how do we get them to want to spend time with us? So here's how we leverage that social DNA. Rather than waterboarding that VP of sales like most people would do, what we do ourselves and what we share with our clients is to reach out in a very specific way, in a very strategic fashion, in a consistent way, above and around the intended target, whether we think we know who they are or not. So you can do this today. You can reach out to the CEO. What we know how to do and what we share is that if he picks up the phone, how to handle that conversation flawlessly. If we get his admin, how to handle that conversation. If we get voicemail, we know exactly, precisely what voicemail to leave every single time. And then exactly, precisely what to do next, which is to reach out to the administrative assistant and have a very specific, very pointed conversation with them, which has very specific objectives. A couple of those objectives would be to not just send an email, but to actually inspire that administrative assistant to give you permission to send that CEO an email and to copy her on it. And at the same time, we might get a referral over to the chief operating officer and permission to send him an email. And surprise, surprise, he's not there, so we leave him a voicemail, and we do it for Mary, the chief marketing officer. So what you see here on the screen with some very precise research might only take 20, 25 minutes to do. But then we do it for company B and company C or company D, or while we're at our kids' soccer game, what might the CEO do with that email? Well, he can certainly delete it or ignore it, which happens, or he might just forward it on to Mary, say, hey, Mary, this is sales and marketing oriented, check this out. And then at the same time, the admin for the CEO, Sally, goes to lunch with Beth, the admin, with Mary's admin, and says, hey, what should I do with this guy Mike who called? Well, forward me that email, and I'll see if that makes sense for Mary. And then, of course, she looks at it and she knows what's going on. So let me send it off to Joe, my VP of sales. And then Mary looks at it and she's getting ready to go on vacation, so she just passes it on to her VP of marketing. Is this something we're interested in? No, it's actually a sales thing. I'm going to forward it on to to Joe. And then the COO looks at it and says, this is an operations oriented. Let me forward it on to my golfing buddy Joe. So the beauty of this is what you see in blue, what you see in orange, farming approach, are seeds we planted. And as long as we do them, what we found out, if we do them in a certain way, a certain order, and a certain synchronicity with a maniacally consistent message, what happens in blue will happen to one degree or another every single time. Sometimes less than it happens, sometimes more than that happens. But I think each and every one of you would agree that you would want this to happen, because what's happening here is we're leveraging the inherent social DNA of the organization that we're prospecting into to help them help us solve the two problems anybody has in getting appointments, which is finding the right person and getting their attention. So by the time we get to the VP of sales, or whoever your VP du jour is, we appear much bigger than we are. It's kind of like what it says in the side view mirror of your car. Objects are closer than they appear. We just appear much bigger than than we are. So that's what we can make happen just by having a very, very consistent message as we go through here. How do we know we're able to reach the right people? Well, like I said, we've been doing this for nearly 12 years, and every single person who has done this and follows the steps, including the 35 people we have in Alpharetta, Georgia, doesn't matter what they're selling, as long as they're selling B2B, if they're 20 years old or they're 50 years old and they've been doing it for 20 minutes or 20 years, every single one who follows the steps gets better, and for many of the experience has been a career game changer. So with that, what I'd like to do is, you've heard from me to give a little bit more color to some of these processes and how they actually manifest themselves within an organization. The first panelist that I'd like to introduce is Andrew Raines. Andrew is the president of Rainmaker, and Rainmaker happens to be headquartered in Alpharetta, Georgia here. Andrew, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Okay. Andrew, what I'd like to do is, could you just spend a few minutes talking a little bit about, really interested in, what is Rainmaker, what do you guys do, And then, what's your go-to-market? You've got some incredible success stories to talk about, and you've been working with Frontline for a few years. Share with me, share with the audience a little bit about those experiences.
Sure, absolutely. Well, hello everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Just as a quick kind of recap since my time at J.D. Edwards, I was there from 1998. So as Mike was walking out the door, I was walking in. But I was there from 1998 through 2006. So I went through the PeopleSoft acquisition and the Oracle acquisition. And during that time, always lived in Atlanta, but worked out of Denver primarily. And like Mike, always had just great memories of my time at J.D. Edwards, and just view all of us as a close-knit group and really as a family. And I love hearing how our colleagues are doing, those that have left Oracle since then. But it was a great 8 years at J.D. Edwards. And so when I left J.D. Edwards, I joined Intuit. They have a division that sells software to the real estate industry, and so I was the head of global sales for Intuit, and then did that for 3 years, and then for the past 4 years have been at Rainmaker. And so just to tell you a little bit about Rainmaker and then how we've utilized Frontline, we are a company that does revenue optimization, and we do it for 3 industries. We do it for the airline industry, the hospitality industry, and the multifamily apartment industry. And we take a lot of information out of companies' operating systems. We run it through our algorithms, and then on a daily basis, we send information back to our customers on how to optimize that price. And today, we're actually producing over 1 billion prices on a daily basis. Just real quick, I'll touch real quick before I jump into how we've leveraged Frontline over my experience actually with all 3 companies. Just from a personal perspective, this whole time through these companies, I've been able to live in Atlanta, and Mike and I actually have the benefit of working out of the same building here in Alpharetta, Georgia. My daughter, Emily, is just graduated from college, and she will be attending Auburn this fall. And my son, who will be a junior in high school, he's out playing competitive golf across the Southeast. So on a lot of weekends, you see us chasing him around with our stomach in knots, trying to watch him make 5-foot putts. So that's watching with spending time with the kids. Jance and I, we will have been married 22 years this year. And on a personal basis, been going on some mission trips. So I've been over to Africa a few times, working south of Nairobi. And then my daughter and I have been going to work in an orphanage over in Cambodia. We actually leave in 2 weeks to go back over to Cambodia and spend some time with some great kids over there in Phnom Penh. And then one additional point is that my nephew, who went to school in Illinois, I knew about the great things, obviously, that Frontline was doing, and so I introduced Mike to my nephew, Derek. And so actually my nephew has been here for a year and is one of the top performers for Frontline. So quickly, just to touch base, I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to actually use Frontline's abilities at all 3 of the companies that I mentioned. At J.D. Edwards, ran the real estate vertical, and when I came in 1998, the customers were actually so unhappy they were getting ready to file a class action lawsuit. And so we had to turn them around, and we took on the mantra that if you want to get bigger, you got to get better. And so we focused the next couple of years on getting better, and we got our customers back to a good place, and we started growing and started winning deals. And there were some real strategic accounts that we wanted to get into that we just weren't equipped on how to create that first initial meeting. And so we hired Frontline, and they came in and was able to, time after time, create those initial meetings for us and get us in. And we got to a place where we were winning 90% of the deals out there, even though we were the most expensive solution in the marketplace. And really had a great run, Frontline being very instrumental in making that happen. And I just attended Realcomm a couple weeks ago and got to see many of my customers at the Realcomm conference that I first met back in 1998. Then in '06, when I went over to Intuit and took over global sales, I inherited a sales team that did not really understand the process for prospecting and how to build a pipeline. And so there I actually contacted Mike and brought him in and flew him up to Cleveland and came in and actually trained our team and showed them, had Mike show them best practices. And one of the stories I remember from the day that I'll never forget was that they used it as an example, and they said, okay, give us the name of a company. And real time, we gave them the name of the company, and they created a MI for us during the training class. And this was a company that we'd not been able to get into ourselves. So it quickly allowed my team to become believers and gain confidence in the process. And we were able in a 3-year period to grow the revenue of that division from a $50 million division to a $100 million division, and saw some great success and became the second fastest growing division in all of Intuit. And then finally, my 4 years here at Rainmaker, as Mike said, I'm the president of the multifamily division, and we've been doubling our customer base every year. But how we use Frontline now is that we actually have a couple of dedicated people that do the big majority of the prospecting for us. And so today we've given them a target list, and they've been very successful at creating these MIs. I'd say utilizing them for the past 18 months, they've been averaging probably 10 to 15 MIs for us across our entire company per month. And many of those have turned into sales. They've also been great at teaching us best practices around how to engage that MI as well as to tell our story. So just in conclusion, I've used Frontline in really kind of 3 different capacities with 3 different companies, and I've seen great success with all 3 of them.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Andrew. I do have a question for you. You guys recently got some funding, didn't you? At Rainmaker.
Yeah, we did. Our 2 principals started the company, and did all the capital on their own for the first 12 years, but we decided that the industries that we're in are such high growth industries that we wanted to grow even faster, and so we went out and raised a small piece of private equity money and brought in Norwest Venture Partners as a partner. They're actually the company that took PeopleSoft really from the start all the way to the end. And so they've got a great track record, and we enjoy our relationship with Norwest.
Excellent. Congratulations. Thank you, Andrew. And everybody, you guys are going to have a chance. If you have any questions, you can certainly chat them in, and we'll bring the panelists in the last 10 or 15 minutes to answer any questions. So any other questions for Andrew, please chat those in. Our next panelist and former J.D. Edwards colleague, Randall Dick, I'm sure many of you Randall's been around J.D. Edwards for a long time, and I'm sure many of you have interacted with him, especially if you're in the sales or sales ops world, right? And so Randall is now the VP of Sales for Four Winds Interactive, and I think he is the the airline secret shopper, I think, because he spends so much time on airplanes. But Randall joins us from Denver, and Randall, how long were you actually at J.D. Edwards, and then I also would like you to share with fast forward from J.D. Edwards to what you did in between, and then to Four Winds, and Four Winds, another just exciting story.
Sure, and yes, I am the airline secret shopper. I can tell you who has good meals and good seats, but spent a lot of time traveling about, domestic and international. But I was with J.D. Edwards for almost 15 years. So Mike and I started the same year back in 1990. So almost 23 years to the day, July 1st, 1990. And I stayed through the beginning of 2005 when Oracle acquired PeopleSoft. So I did stay through the PeopleSoft merger. That was exciting, a lot of fun. When Oracle finally, took over PeopleSoft, I had the luxury of taking a package and leaving and doing some different things. But I kind of had two perspectives on sales, if you will. The first 11 years I was, came up through the ranks doing, the rep to manager to director of sales activities. And then the last 4 years, including a year and a half at PeopleSoft, I ran global sales operations. So I kind of got that perspective of not just field sales, but the corporate perspective and sales operations, which gets a little bit more into the process side of the world, which is usually a bit foreign for us sales guys, but added another dimension to my experience. So after, and the topic life after J.D. Edwards, 15 years there, it was kind of like, boy, where do you go from here? I don't know, I don't know what would be as exciting. We were there in the 90s when ERP was really hot, and J.D. Edwards was just a great company. So in fact, from 2005 until about 4 years ago, I was doing some training and consulting and working with different companies, trying to find the next really fun thing to do. And that's when I stumbled upon Four Winds Interactive. And probably a lot of you are not familiar with the name. Essentially, we're in the digital signage business. So on one hand, it's a relatively old industry in that if you've walked into a mall or a public venue and you've seen advertisement rotating on a flat screen monitor, that was really the genesis of digital signage. But what's really happened to the industry is it's moving more to the customer experience and interactive signage. Think of it as, big smartphones on a wall, and that's really changed our industry so that it's very immature again. It's also very hot, so there's a lot of activity everywhere. We're almost doubling every year, even in the bad economies we've had the last few years. And it's just, it's a very exciting industry to be in. If you still can't quite get your head around what that means, if you've stayed in a Marriott Courtyard recently and you've seen the big 55-inch monitor with the sign that they call the Go Board, you touch it, it gives you news, it gives you directions to local restaurants, things like that. Well, we developed the engine to create that. And we're now doing that in a multitude of industries. Pretty much can't pick an industry where we don't have a presence. So very, very exciting. So Mike, would you like me to talk a little bit about our experience with Frontline, or would you like any more information on Four Winds?
I think even as exciting, I mean, it's just so pervasive. When I got introduced to Four Winds, I didn't realize how pervasive this is and could be. I mean, you mentioned everything from like, big, how do you find your way around a cruise ship, right? Versus, which is, again, one of the applications, or a big corporate campus, or even down to the menu board at a pizza shop, right? Where they can, change their prices on the fly or add specials on the fly. I mean, the application for this is just endless, and it's just really, really exciting.
Yeah, it really is, and kind of as a segue to our experience with Frontline, on one hand, it's interesting. We have reps that have never made a cold call, so you think that's great, but some of these younger reps are like, "What's a cold call?" But that's because we're in a hot industry. We have a great marketing engine, great web presence. We get a ton of inbound leads, if you will, all the time. The bad news about that is they're not always the leads that we want. So as we've gone from responding to all these, Joe's Coffee Shop wants a menu board, to really going after large, global enterprises with whether it's employee communications or some other application, we found that we really wanted to be more proactive in what we went after. So thus frontline selling. We started talking to Mike, I don't know, 2.5 years ago. For the first 6 months, we outsourced the activity to them so that they would help us get into some of the accounts that we really wanted to target versus, just react. And then as we learned what they were doing and, got some of our own internal lead gen people trained, we started adopting the principles and some of the Salesforce plugins and things of that nature so that we could take that in-house and continue that success. So it's been great for us. It's allowed us to really define a little bit more what we're doing and where we're successful as opposed to just reacting.
Wonderful. Well, and we one of the things that you did there at Four Winds was almost build out and more of a proactive business development engine internally, Randall. And so one of the things that you guys were able to do was leverage our systems and processes, which also you guys are big Salesforce.com users, right? I think
to the extreme.
To the extreme, yes. So we actually found out that there's a limit to the number of tabs you can have in Salesforce.com, and that was because Four Winds reached out with the limit.
We hit the limit.
We hit the limit. The limit was 25, in case you want to know. I don't know if they've changed that, but that was the limit at one point. And so and we have an app that snaps into Salesforce, and that's and these guys are just like Salesforce junkies, right? Just really one of the premier usages of Salesforce.com that I've seen, and I've gotten to work with lots of companies. So congratulations, Randall, on your success at Four Winds, and you guys just keep knocking it out of the park. I'm sure people have some questions for you. So with that, I want to take you to our final panelist, who's Jay Irwin. Jay, are you there?
I am indeed.
Hey, Jay. So Jay is as director of University Mobility Innovation Center at SAP. Definitely share with us what that's all about, a little bit about your experiences, at SAP to date, and I do not have access, so just if you want me to advance the slide, just let me know.
Sounds great. All right, so just telling my story here of life after J.D. Edwards. December 28th of 2008, I stood on top of a 12,000-foot peak in the backcountry of Colorado. Bluebird day, 36 inches of snow had fallen, and I took off skiing. We found out that as I was skiing down there, launching cliffs, not a care in the world, so much snow, kind of no consequences snow, and I came over a final roller that turned to about 38-degree pitch. And as I made 3 of the most beautiful turns down through that pitch, what you see on the screen right now is what happened. The entire mountain let loose. It grabbed me, spun me around. I was in the white room, didn't see anything, felt tree after tree hitting and breaking my bones, and took me down to the bottom. Thankfully, at the end, buried to my chest, I was able to dig myself out. I had a broken fib, severed arteries and nerves, shattered my pelvis. And if we go to the next slide, there's some beauties on that one. But as I laid at the bottom of that avalanche slope, and I had duct taped my leg back together and was trying to figure out how to survive, a lot of things came to my mind. One of those were my kids. Both kids, now 17 and 14, not wanting to leave them behind. Another thing that came were a lot of the great things and accomplishments that went through my life, and the special times and special people that I met, especially at J.D. Edwards. I think we all say it. There was a magical time during that when we were working together. We were making mistakes. We were learning lessons, and we were recovering. If we take a look at it in 1998, we had the AEC business units where I met Andrew Raines. and I worked in that. Mike Scher was there at that time. Again, I think it's a coincidence that both Andrew and I came in at the same time Mike left. But, we worked that until the fiscal year ended that year, and then Whitey blew it up. And so we went then to a vertical support group and continued to work as a team through that. So getting together with the likes of Peter Hill, David Brown, Kevin Van Horn, Rich DeMeo, Lance Larkin, Eric Thurston, here shown in this picture, getting together and working as a team and making sure that we're getting in there with the customers. It was 2002 that we put together the PSI business unit, Project and Service Industries, and we all dug in deep, and we worked as a team, and we blew out our number that year by doing calling with Frontline, calling and focusing on the industry. So a phenomenal time in there. And then, of course, Conway came in and blew that up. So that was the PeopleSoft days. And then I stayed through the Oracle days and enjoyed my time there for sure. In 2005, I spent 6 months with Oracle. We were still trying to decide our industry story at that time. I think there's still a little bit of that that's still being decided on what's going on. In 2005, I talked with the folks at SAP and was asked to come over and work with the industry. So much like what Andrew Raines did at J.D. Edwards in the real estate space, I came in and went in and built the real estate construction and home building business unit, along with the likes of Peter Hill, pictured here, in one of our bad decisions on trying to take a two-man boat down through Class 5 rapids. Thankfully, Pete survived, but during that time, Pete and I built out this business unit from kind of a small startup to a huge organization within the company. So going from just in the mid-market space, 0.5 million up to 18 million. And as we take a look at that, we also took pipeline across the company within the real estate construction space from 25 million up to 120 million. And how did we do it? It was teamwork. It was getting together with the folks at Frontline, and we hired them on to give us 25 leads, 25 meaningful interactions. And let me tell you, to this day, I tell that as the story of the greatest execution aspect in what we did, because we got together with the industry principal, we got together with the account executive, and the Frontline person who got that 20-minute meaningful interaction with someone in the space that we wanted to go visit. And we were able to have that 20-minute conversation to find out what they were doing and to go further and really execute on the sales aspect of it. Of course, in standard fashion, the national practice got disbanded again, but certainly the industry principal still resides there, focusing on the construction, real estate, and home building space at SAP. But as Mike alluded to earlier, as I sat at the bottom of that hill and I started to think about things like, what would you do if money were no object? What would you do if you got the chance to do whatever it is that you wanted to do? And that's what I'm doing today. So I am working with universities. I am bringing in our platform. I am actually teaching classes at the University of Colorado Boulder. Shockingly, people are allowing me into colleges to teach the bright young minds of today. But we're teaching them on our platform, and we're bringing those students into customers to build out applications for them. And they're actually building out amazing applications that the customers can use today, along with hiring people that I'm bringing to them. So it's a fun thing. As Andrew says, the charitable work is big in his life, same in mine. I spend a lot of time with the inner city youth in Denver. City Wild is a big organization that I believe in, teaching leadership opportunities to kids through outdoor education. and then a few others that are really beneficial for me. Nonetheless, Mike, I appreciate you allowing us to be on this call. Again, we've had great interaction with the folks at Frontline, and that's my story.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, Jay. And in the few minutes we have left here, really the goal here was to sort of, like that high school reunion, kind of where are they now, sort of thing, and to sort of rekindle that from those great days we had at J.D. Edwards and some great experiences and friendships and business relationships that we were able to build. But as we see that a lot of what has been built, what was built sort of in that structure, is now taking shape in other organizations like SAP, like Four Winds Interactive, like Rainmaker, like Frontline Selling, and so Brooke, in the last couple minutes here, we may have a couple questions, I think, from from the audience.
Hey, we have had a couple come in, and a few people have said thank you guys. This has been very interesting to hear. So if you have a question you'd like to ask the panel, go ahead and chat that into us now into the GoToWebinar panel there. Just write to us and we'll answer your question. So far, if someone has asked what Frontline lesson still resonates with you today, one of the guys want to take that?
Yeah. Maybe Randall can take that one. What Frontline lessons when maybe when you're talking about some of the process and methodology. I know when I was first introduced to some other folks, some of your colleagues at Four Winds, there was a little skepticism, I think, Randall. So what sort of lessons from a Frontline perspective do you or do you think some folks at Four Winds took away?
Yeah, and actually I'd step even a step further back. When I went from field sales to sales operations, I was skeptical of process in general. I think you probably get that a lot when people in field sales interact with corporate sales operations. And but I heard something early on when I made that move that resonated with what we did with Frontline also, and that is a process exists whether you created it, whether you like it. Something is in place that people are doing. So if that's the case, then you might as well define it so that it works as well as possible. And that's really what we, what came across as we, convinced everybody here at Four Winds to engage in this process. If you have a concrete process that you get to define, your results are going to be far more in line with your expectations and your desires than if you just haphazardly let people, do whatever it is they do.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. Brooke, we have another question?
Yes, we have time for just a couple more. Yes, it looks like Andrew has asked, okay, so have you seen Frontline Selling enhance your process besides just more appointments? Has it helped your sales process as a whole?
Yes, Brooke, that's a great question. I think a couple points I'd make on that is, number one, although we do have a couple of dedicated Frontline people, setting up MIs for us, I tell the sales team that I do not want 100% of our prospecting to be done by Frontline. There's still accountability and responsibility on the sales team for them to do that as well. And I've had many of my sales team members actually come into Frontline's office and sit with some of their team members just to watch them in action. And I know that it's made our salespeople better at the process. And then something that Mike and I have been working on actually together for the past month is a best practice that he's seen and just on how you tell your story. And so Mike's been actually helping us craft kind of a 5-minute story about how we tell companies, what we do, our credibility story as far as the results that we've seen and who we've done it for, and really to lay out just a great story of how Rainmaker can help them increased revenue. So we definitely see, probably the first benefit of getting these MI set, but we definitely see some best practices, and I think Frontline is very good at, contacting us when they see best practices and sharing them with us.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, if I can comment on that, that's something that we're seeing more and more is clients saying, hey, we got the appointment, now what? Our sales guys are inconsistent at best at delivering that, and we've had the luxury of working with hundreds and hundreds of companies and seeing what works and what doesn't work, and we found that the way you tell that story the first time to somebody is really, makes a difference in terms of, whether you get a second date. So that's real important. Well, one more question, Brooke. Do we have time for one more?
Yeah, I think we can squeeze one more in and then close up. Matt said, does this work better for certain industries than others?
Well, I'm going to answer part of the question, then I'm going to defer to Jay for a second. So, the short answer is that regardless of industry, we've been successful. Whether it's whether it's big companies, small companies selling supply chain or ERP or real estate or digital signage or digital marketing or LRO or whatever it is. So there's but Jay's had a couple different experiences through real estate, through construction, through home building, through some other places, right? So maybe get Jay's comment on that.
Yeah, I think that certainly I've seen it be utilized in a manufacturing environment, in ProServe, construction, real estate, home building. The only thing that I always say is when you get the meaningful interaction, you not only have to have the AE, but you also have to have the industry person who knows that industry. If you try and put together that meaningful interaction with someone that doesn't know the industry, your chances of success are greatly reduced.
Well, and thank you, Jay. And we're coming right up on top of the hour. From a contact perspective, I'm just remiss by not having email addresses on here. But Andrew, can you just, what we're going to do is, Andrew, if you can just share your email address, if people want to contact you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just say that anybody that wants to get in touch, for those of you that I know or don't know, if there's anything that I can do to help you, and I know Jay and Randall are the same way, we would all be glad to do that. But my email address is arains, R-A-I-N-S, arains at letitrain.com, arains at letitrain.com.
Let It Rain. I love that domain, letitrain.com. And Randall, what's yours?
Similar to Andrew, rdick, so R-D-I-C-K, at 4 Winds Interactive, just as you see it on the screen, .com.
Okay. And then Jay?
I'm easy. First name, last name, at sap.com or at gmail.com. So jay.irwin.
Okay, and and you guys all got emails from me, but Scher at frontlineselling.com. We're also going to send out these email addresses on a thank you email to everybody. But if you want to connect with us here at Frontline on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, please feel free to do so. And I'm sure Andrew, Randall, and Jay all would welcome introductions and connections, certainly on LinkedIn for sure. So folks, appreciate your time today. Thank you for thank you for attending. Andrew, Randall, and Jay, thank you for your for being customers in your business. Thank you for your contributions to to this webinar. I hope you had fun doing it. I certainly did, and really appreciate your input and supporting the Life After J.D. Edwards community. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Absolutely.